There we are.
Hey,
All right. Happy Monday. Welcome. We're back. And for real, we're back. Man, always problems on Mondays. The software didn't want to work today either, apparently. Well,
everyone gets Monday feelings, right?
Case of the Mondays.
Yeah, exactly. It never changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just globally understood that nobody likes to work Mondays, but nobody likes to work Fridays. So what's the sweet spot?
Yeah, that's true. Just could pick something in there.
Yeah, I would switch to a 2 or 3 day work week. Tuesday through Thursday, and call it.
There you go. I'd be okay with a 4-day work week, to be fair.
Well, a lot of countries have sort of adopted that. I want to say Denmark?
Mm-hmm.
Might have made that up, but maybe it is Denmark, yeah.
Yep.
And they say that the positivity or the mood shift from going to the 4-hour day has been, or excuse me, 4-day work week has been amazing for just everyone. But why can't we do that?
Yeah, that's true. Someone's saying that there's echo.
See?
Is that you? Is it from
It's
me?
gotta be. It's gotta be mine. But why? Here we go. Let's see. We'll figure this out, guys. Bear with me here. I actually don't hear it now. Do you guys hear it now?
You guys hear it?
It's normal now.
Okay.
That does.
We did it.
I didn't even change anything.
I didn't change anything either, so we did it, guys.
Okay, cool. Well, anyway, welcome everyone. Happy Monday to the Tech Commute, brought to you by Torque.dev. It's Jason. That's better now. Perfect. Thank you, Job Father. Thank you, Richard, Jeff. I see Jake Torres here. Jordan Wallace. Everybody's coming in. We are I am stoked to have James Perkins here. Do you always use the middle initial? I noticed it in your Twitter handle, but I want to make sure I'm referring to you by the correct name.
Yeah. Most people just call me James or James Perkins. My middle initial or middle name doesn't get used as often.
But only when you're in trouble.
Yeah, only when I'm in trouble, and only when my handle isn't available because there's a famous artist with the same name as me. And so I always have to put an R in there. So.
Well, I understand the pain there because I am Tayson Jorez on Twitter because there's a Jason Torres, but he doesn't use it. He doesn't use it at all.
It doesn't use mine either. So.
That is frustrating. Well, I want to dig into your background, where you've been, where you're going. I want to talk about Unkey, talk about where that even came up to start this company and like how that's evolved, and again where that's going. And we are at the beginning of the new year in January 2025. So I want to talk about what you think is having the experience you do, what you think of the tech job market now that we're going into 2025, and maybe giving some people out there some tools or tips that you have to maybe help them proceed into the job market as well. So it's great to have you. If you'd like, you can also introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll give myself a quick intro if people don't know who I am. Yeah, my name is James Perkins. I've been in this industry for 16. Must be almost year 17. So I've been doing this a long time. Most people probably knew me from my time at Clerk when I worked at Clerk for a long time. And then maybe even my YouTube channel, Twitch channel, all the stuff I was doing during COVID and afterwards. And now I'm the CEO of Unkey, which is a different experience and something new and something enjoyable and completely different than what I was doing 5 years ago or even 10 years ago.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think that's always people's kind of dream, but a lot of people don't follow through on that to run their own, start their own company, do their own things. I guess if you want to rewind a little bit, let's talk about how you got into tech, like where that started for you. And then we can kind of come back to maybe where you phased out from working at org to wanting to start your own situation. Because I mean, everybody's journeys are different. And it sounds like, this one could be super interesting as far as, again, like making those choices. So go ahead. Were you always a tech guy from high school to college? Where did that start for you?
Yeah, I was a tech guy before even high school or secondary school because I'm from England. We don't really have high schools, but same idea. I actually went to a tech secondary school, which was like an unheard of thing. And we were like one of the first in the country. And so you actually got like you didn't get a laptop, but you had to actually buy a laptop or rent a laptop from the school. So this is like
Oh wow.
OG laptop rentals, right? I'm talking, I think the one that I had uh Windows XP on. And then I got a second one because my first one broke and it had Windows ME on it, which is like
Wow.
an unheard of, like very small niche version of Windows that happened for a very short period of time before they moved on.
That's a
Um,
Windows deep cut right
yeah,
there. Like not a lot of people remember that one.
yeah. So I went to a school, so I was like really into computers. I was really into like just generalized like PCs in general. So I built PCs as a kid. Like my dad got me my first one, and I built it from like bare bones, put all the stuff in it, and I was just really into that kind of stuff. And I left secondary school at 16. No interest at all in like going to college. I just wasn't a person. I tried like 3 or 4 times over a long period of time. Just I couldn't get into it. I'd done all these years of school and it was just boring, and I just nothing really excited me. Um, and then I moved in 2008. 2009. I moved to America, and so I needed a job. And the things that I were good at was customer service because I had been in like I'd done grocery stores or game stores, all those kinds of things as just like jobs.
Mhm.
And so a friend of mine got me a job as a technical specialist on the phone. So dealerships in the United States would call in and be like, "Hey, we're trying to use your software, and like this is happening. Can you like figure out why?" And so that was like my foray into tech. And within the first year and a half, I'd gone from sort of like customer service. I'd done a little bit of hardware specialist. So I was building PCs and shipping them to dealerships. And then I moved into software engineering. Um,
Hardware. So you started hardware side. The
yeah,
the focus for you was definitely more hardware
yeah.
side, and then you're making this transition to software. Like, what was that first hello world moment for you?
I think it was just a lot of like spending time debugging problems. Because to give some grand scheme and concepts of how it works. So basically, in the dealership, they'd have our software, and our software would then talk to the state. And depending on which state you're in, they have all these different rules and logic. And so, like a dealership would say, like, "Hey, we got brand new 2025 trucks, for example, and they don't work in your system." Or they're like getting a weird error message, and you'd spend this time like looking at code and debugging basically everything. And so that really got me excited about it. And then the real like light bulb moment was we released new software in Illinois. And if you did a certain thing and needed to print the PDF at the end, if the PDF was too big, it would crash the software. And so I actually debugged and figured out what the problem was, which it was just like an old version of Java was released in the original version. And if you updated the version of Java that the product used, the bug would go away. And that was like the first aha moment of like digging a big stack trace down to like this really like obvious error, taking this obvious error, sticking it in Google, and someone coming back and being like, "Hey, by the way, this bug was fixed in this version." And then the engineering manager of the software team like came to me and basically said like, "Hey, do you write software? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I do it occasionally. Like, I'm not really huge into it." And he's like, "Hey, we'd love to like have you come and like see like what we do every day. Maybe it'll interest you, and then maybe you can go from there." Um, and so I basically joined the team as like junior, like super junior. I was getting paid like, if I remember correctly, it was 27,000 a year. So it was like extreme junior time. I was in a state that's like not San Francisco, it's like Connecticut, so it's like not super expensive. Um and then I just basically my whole career for the first 3 or 4 years of that company was just helping people understand how to debug properly. Like, where do you go? How do you read stack traces properly? Where do you take that from there? What should you be looking for? Um, and so once I had that all down, it was like, oh, cool. Now I can just write the code. And I was just self taught. Everything was just like I read it on the screen. and I understood how it works, and then I just wrote new code. And I did that for so long, and then I got promoted really quickly. So I was running a team in the first 5 years of my career, um, because I just had this
Wow.
ability to like look at code and be like, cool, I understand what this does. Okay, now I need to like do something else. Um, and yeah, that kind of transferred around, and I spent the first almost 10 years of my career at the same place before like leaving. And I wrote a bunch of software for California and Georgia and a bunch of other places where we rewrote code from Java based CD applications. So if there's like people under the age of like 25, you probably don't know what a CD is, but everybody else probably does. We used to ship them in a FedEx envelope, the software, and then they would get over the air updates via the internet. Um, and so we went through a rewrite stage of actually using React. And that was like my first foray into like web app. But we were like behind on React too. It was after like the Angular Vue React war that happened for a while. And then React kind of came out on top. Like I was at the tail end of the React wars essentially.
So was there a conversation that maybe it would have been changed over from what you were doing to Angular at one point? Like where was the decision to go with React? Just because
Yeah.
it won, essentially?
I think
Majority rules?
yeah, it was the majority's rules, but I remember we had one state that was written in Angular. So we tried like Angular and we tried to figure out if that would be the best case scenario. Would that transfer from what people were already building? Because remember, we're building web apps in Java, which is like a weird concept to a lot of people. And it's very time consuming. It's really hard to do. Um, Not enjoyable, not easy to debug. So one team took an Angular project and then one team took a React project. And they basically said, like, okay, who can build this the fastest? And get a POC working and like understand the core concepts. And that was really the conversation was like, okay, which one of these is really going to like translate well? And because of the way that React is built, it's very much like even if you look at it and you're not using like React APIs, it's just HTML anyway. So like a lot of it was very core conceptual that people could just pick it up. And then the team, like all the managers, including myself, like sat down and said like, hey, like what do we bet on? And it was like, well, we should bet on the one that's probably got the most backing in the sense that like we know who React is backed by, right? Like, so in theory, they're probably going to come out on top. Um, and so we just went for it, and they're still using React now, and like that hasn't changed, and they're still building new web dev using React. I think they moved to like Next.js as time went on, but like in the beginning, it was all React apps, CRA style.
Nice. I mean, React's obviously still pretty widely used. Or where should people start as far as like their React journey? Like, what are some of the basics? Because I know we do have a lot of people that are touching React, learning React that are in the chat here. Roxy, I'm looking at you. We talked about doing some sort of content around that, and I would love to know, like, from your perspective, what should people be learning first in their React ecosystem?
I think it's a complicated question today. Well, maybe if you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have just said like, "Hey, just go with like a framework of choice," and like been like, "Oh yeah, just go with Next.js because that was my framework of choice 2 years ago. It's still kind of our framework of choice today, slightly less so as the ecosystem has changed." But I think like people learning React, I think it's very much just a build on something that interests you. You could probably learn the core concepts of React using like the React docs because they have really good docs on like the core concepts of how everything works. But in reality, most people that haven't learned React or aren't really on that level of like, oh, I know HTML, I know some JavaScript, I'm learning React. Like the odds of them in a real world scenario just using vanilla React is basically zero at this point. I don't know many shops that are really just using pure React. They're using a framework, whether it's Remix or Next.js, or they're using Astro, or they're using something to do the work for them. And I think like learning React today is like, yeah, read the docs and then just build some stuff, and then pick a framework that sounds exciting to you and then build on that.
Nice. Yeah, I think that that totally makes sense. And I mean, looking at, I guess maybe the learning process in 2025, like I would say, and it sounds like being a self-taught, this is sort of how you did it, where it was like really immerse yourself in the docs and everything. You started with Java, is
Yeah.
that?
hmm
Yeah. And and then you went to React. Where did you go from React? Like what? And I know you said Next.js specifically, but is there anything else that you're working with now or learning now?
I did. So I was a backend developer even after I left like the web app team. So like I did the Java and then moved. And so I wrote some Go for a while, for a few years, and have focused on that. And like at Unkey, we use Go, and we also use TypeScript, and we're also using Next.js for a lot of the work. But um, yeah, I think that was basically it. And if you're going to learn anything, being involved somewhere. So if you wanted to like learn how a monorepo works, like finding someone who's built a monorepo that's open source that you can look through and see how it works. Like we take a lot of pride. I'm pretty sure that Andres is probably in here somewhere listening. But like we take a lot of pride in how we built the monorepo, which was a lot of his work in the beginning, and like looking at how our code is fleshed out and like how we've built that so it's easy for people to understand like what each individual package or app or whatever is doing. You may not understand all the code, but at least you can understand how that kind of works. And like, yeah, as a self-taught developer, I just like hopped in, read a lot of docs, and then looked at a lot of code and kind of tried to put two and two together and spent hours and hours and hours doing those kinds of things. And it worked and it really helped. And I think if you don't immerse yourself in something, you'll struggle. You can watch as many tutorials on YouTube or whatever, but it's not going to help you unless you're actually like immersed in what you're trying to do. Um, and I think people are realizing that whether they're building with the latest code gen or whatever through AI, but they're realizing that if I spend more time in in looking at things and being immersed, I can learn way faster than if I just spent some time like building, just like watching a YouTube video and then trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah, replicating tutorials step by step.
Mhm.
I don't think it's efficient. I certainly think your route or idea makes way more sense. And as far as like really immersing yourself in the docs and understanding that, are there any other like techniques that you would say you would find most efficient? Like how are people learning today? Like to you, like what should they be doing besides that?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've always said is like if you've learned something, you can teach that thing again, right? Which doesn't have to be a one-to-one comparison, but like if
Hmm.
you write a piece of content on what you've learned, the odds of you actually learning what it's about, it 10x is it. I'm very like uh, bullish on like building a blog and then writing in that blog about the things that you're learning and talking about the concepts and things like that. I think that's become more and more popular as like the ease of use of building a blog, whether you build a blog or like you use a hosted thing like Dev2 or Hashnode or one of those other ones that are out there, like being able to write down as you learn and kind of teach that back to somebody else um, is really, really good. And that's kind of how I even went into YouTube with the idea of like it would be cool to like give back all the things I've learned over the last 10 years, like or 11 years or however long it was. Um and give that back to the community and be like, hey, like this is how you do this concept and this is how this concept works. And that was kind of how I started YouTube during COVID, was because I was just like, I want to give back some of those learnings and teach new people. And I think
I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head too. Being able to like teach someone anything, really. I mean, again, this isn't industry specific, just shows like your knowledge of it so much more in depth. We had a good question here from Jordan wanting to lean into getting better at the back end stuff. Do you have any specific resources you would suggest for somebody that wants to do that?
I think specific resources is a bit hard. It depends on what kind of backend you want to get into, right? Like, there's a lot of different space there.
Hmm.
So whether you're like want to get into like the infrastructure by code part of it, or you want to build APIs and then you want to go into that side of things and like how that core business logical works, but it basically comes down to like deciphering what language you really are interested in. Because in the back end, there's a lot, right? Like I wouldn't tell anyone today go and learn Java, like because I went through 10 years of hell of it, and I,
Yeah.
you know, no, it's not for everyone, and it has a lot of messy concepts. But like, if you're really interested in like, oh, I want to be in the back end, pick the one that most excites you the most. So like, if Go is the language that you think is so cool and like you want to build on it, like go to their docs first and read, because they have Learning by Go, which is like incredible resource. And then start like following other creators in that space, to trying to give you more sort of like nuance into building with that project, and then just start building stuff. It will really help kind of solidify the core concepts if you build something. And if you're heavy at C# at my job, you should just lean into C as much as possible. Like C# is dope. I spent a lot of time building when I worked at a credit union, and that's all we used was C#. And like just build on those already concepts that you know. And if that's the one you enjoy, do it. I don't really have any specific resources for C#, but like it's all around like learning who in the industry is like giving those resources out, and then continuing on.
I love that feedback. Great question too, Jordan. Again, just kind of staying on this learning thing,
Mm-hmm.
how do you approach multiple different languages and multiple different frameworks? Just looking at all of the options, because somebody just put down here too, there's so many options for backend that you can't really go wrong in any direction you choose. But I feel like at the same time, that could be detrimental because there are so many options. You're not giving yourself an opportunity to maybe learn enough about one before you jump to the next one. So you're never going to be proficient in anything. How do you kind of avoid the temptation of all these things?
Yeah, so I think we're all kind of in the concept of shiny object syndrome, right? Where
Oh
something
yeah.
new comes out and we're all like, "Oh god, we really got to like get in on this, whatever it might be." And I think it comes down to really just having some sort of like mental fortitude of like, I want to learn X, I should like continue this journey, and yeah, keeping up with other things like reading about new core concepts or new topics or new frameworks is fine. But until you've spent 6 months to a year like grinding away at like a language, whether that's in your role or wherever, like you're not going to have enough proficiency to take you somewhere with it. And I struggle with that too, like, and so does our whole team. Like, being able to say no to ourselves is hard, right? Like being like, oh well, I have time, like, why wouldn't we do this? Like, we have time, right? But time is finite, and at some point you have to decipher like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. And if it doesn't work out, then okay, like I can, there's going to be a point whether you decide that you still like what you're doing, and if you don't like what you're doing, that's the time to really move away from it. Like, give yourself grace and be like, okay, I don't really like what I'm learning right now, or I don't really like what I'm doing right now. I'll give myself 30 days or a month, and then I'll reevaluate that situation and then pull back in. And if you're still not enjoying it, then that's that time to like maybe consider a new framework or something along those lines.
Yeah, I love that. I think even outside of just like the code part of tech, shiny
Hmm.
object syndrome is everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere, right?
Um, there's so many different productivity tools and is even browsers or terminals,
Yep.
and they're it's like how do you choose? And I mean, for me too, I saw somebody drop Notion down in the chat. Like, there's a whole nother can of worms that you
Mhm.
could go into. But as far as for your team, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means, like what sort of tools are you guys using in house?
Yeah, so our in-house tools, like in general. So I'll talk about the tech ones first, and I'll talk about like other things that we use
Yeah,
and
yeah.
keep us going. So like the concept of Unkey is basically there's really two parts. There's like a dashboard, and then there's like the actual API that like provides our services. So the dashboard is Next.js with TRPC. That's just how it's built. So it's very much like someone could pretty much, if they know anything about Next.js, come and look at our dashboard and see how it's built. And then the back end, the API is written in Go, and we use Cloudflare and we use Fly and we use a couple of other things to like stitch that all together. And we use Planet Scale for a database. Um, and so like we've kind of kept with that, but I'll talk about after I talked about I'll talk about some stories around how this kind of where we are now. And then like internally we use products like Rise Calendar, which is, if you haven't heard of it, it's basically a calendar that allows you to like add your entire team, and then it puts them in the correct time zones. So when you try and make a meeting, it gives you the exact time zone that they would be in if you try and make a meeting at like 5 in the morning their time. Like it gives you that good concepts. And it also blocks off time for things like focus. So especially for Andreas and I, who have like 100 meetings a week, it allows us to like actually block out time to do real things. Um, and then we just use standard stuff. Like, unfortunately, we use Slack now. We were on Campsite, but they shut down because they got like the founders went to Notion.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that.
and Campsite was like the greatest product of all time. And I'm really sad that it's gone because it had everything that was wrong with Slack and Notion fixed, as well as having things like video call and AI summary of videos and things like that all built into the product. And it was like, it allowed us to build the way that we wanted the company to build, which is all open. Like, we don't use DMs. Like, DMs are like almost sin at our place unless it's like something that's like personal or something like that. But we don't use that. We have like channels and everyone posts in the channels. Um, and so Campsite allowed us to do that without having to worry about people DMing, because they're like, their messaging feature was terrible and you couldn't search on it. So if someone wrote something to you, there was no searchability, which was fantastic because it stopped you from DMing. Because like in Slack, if you DM each other, you lose context, but you can go and find it later. So now we're back on Slack. We use Notion, unfortunately, as well, because now Campsite is no longer exists. So we're back to Notion. And those are the real big things. Like, I use, outside of that, I don't use a lot of like productivity tools. I don't find them useful. Oh, we use Granola AI. I don't know if you've seen that, which now
No, what's that?
that basically you can go into a meeting and it will give you a summary of what happened in the meeting afterwards. So you
Ooh,
can actually notes. Both Andreas and I just started using it. It's really, really good because I'm terrible at taking notes. Because if I start taking notes, I'm not listening to whatever you're saying. And so we're using that, and that seems to be pretty good to like give us the AI summary that we can pass back and forth. Um, and yeah, that's about all we really use. We don't use we're not really heavy tools. Oh, we use Linear. That would probably be the other one that we use in conjunction with GitHub, because we're open source. Everything's in GitHub, but we use Linear to kind of drive projects forward. But that's about it, really.
nice.
But on the shiny object syndrome, we went through that at Unkey. Like, we originally built everything in TypeScript. We realized that TypeScript is not the best for a backend API of the scale that we wanted. And so we built a new version of that, and we deployed it to one server, and then we ended up going back to Fly, and now we're going back to AWS. And it's like, we get that kind of that problem. And we've talked about rewriting our dashboard from Next.js to like Remix or to something else. We've also talked about rewriting our landing page from Next.js to Astro. And like, we've just sort of come down to the point now where it's like, well, if it's not going to, one, improve any of our users' experience, and two, it's not going to like benefit us as a team or outside contributors, it's not worth doing right now. It might be worth doing in a year, but it's not worth doing right now. And so we've kind of like got that concept in our minds. And now we do RFCs to like actually push those kinds of projects. So like, we'll actually get feedback from our entire team as to whether or not we should actually do something before we ever execute on it. And that's like got rid of some of that. And we're a really small team. There's only 5 of us, but we're trying to instill that like, we want feedback from everybody before we make a big decision that's going to affect everybody there.
Feedback is so important. I'm glad you brought that up because I think, and again, this ties back to the shiny object syndrome too, and just like where you decide to make the decisions on how you build a product. Period. Like, what ultimately do you look at when considering how you're going to do something? Or are you thinking about how it affects the customer, or how it affects your build or your time in optimizing or iteration later on? Like, what are some of the factors for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think number one is how does it affect either existing customers or potential new customers, and I think that would be the same for most. But then it comes down to like, once we're thinking about is it affecting the customer, it then comes down to how does it affect us day to day. Like, if we take on like some big project that we have quite a few coming in the future, when we decide that we're going to make them, we have to think about one, our whole theory is like developer experience. And if the developer experience is terrible, then why are we building it? Like, if we can't improve on what's out there today, like, what's the point? And then secondly, it's like, is it feasible for a team of 5 to, one, be able to build it in a reasonable amount of time? And two, what's the maintenance burden on that project too? How is it going to affect everybody's day to day of like, well, we've built this cool thing and now we spend 75% of our time in support trying to help people figure out how it works. Then it's no good to anybody. That means that one, we've either built a really terrible feature or product, or two, we didn't think about this beforehand. And so we spend a lot of time talking about those things. And we actually publish all of our RFCs online that people can go and read, to see like how we're actually deciphering these decision making pieces, and like how we're deciding, and the feedback that we get around those.
I love that you post everything, and I'm kind of curious, like where the decision was to be so transparent.
Mm.
Like where was the decision there? Because again, the feedback is so important. I would love to know how you guys handle customer feedback specifically, but then also where the idea just to be again just totally transparent with all this stuff kind of came.
Yeah, so I think if we really go back to like just Andres and I in general, when we built this project, it was a side project. It wasn't like we're going to do this big giant thing that's going to be a company and we're going to have to like get funding and do all these things. It was like, we have a side project and we're building this and it's going to be open source. So we want everybody to be able to see everything that we're doing all the time. And so when we actually got to the stage of like, hey, we actually have money now, we didn't want to change that. We didn't want to be like, oh, we got money now, like let's do the old rug pull and make it proprietary and like not do that. And on top of that, we both, Andreas and I, were like in circles of commercial open source projects. So like cow.com, for example, and a few others were all building these open source projects. And if you look at cow.com, they're kind of the gold standard of like how to build an entirely open company from end to end. You can look at, everybody that gets paid there, how much they're getting paid. You can look at everything that they've sent to investors. You can look at all their analytical data. Like, they have everything. And we're not quite at that level yet. Like, we're still kind of in the early stages of that, but you can look at like the traffic that comes to our site and all things like that. And we just made this decision like really, really early on, and it turned some investors off. Was like, we don't want to close source any part of the company. We want everybody to understand that we are VC backed and we get funding from them. But at the end of the day, this is our like project and our passion, and we want people to be involved from the beginning to the end, and we want our team to feel the same way. So our team gets any decision that I'm making as CEO, like the team gets to know before it happens. Whether that's like, hey, we're going to go raise more money. I'm going to tell you that we're going to do that, and here's like 5 reasons why we're doing it today, and like why we're not going to wait another year, or why we're not waiting 6 months, whatever it might be. Or like, hey, we're going to like change our corporate cards from the current ones we have to new ones, and here's why. Our team knows everything about that, and they get to know all of that. And they get everything I send to like the investors. So the emails I send, they get access to those. So they can read through and be like, oh, okay, like James talked about this or that, or mentioned me and building this project. And so we've really just kept that going. And I don't want to ever change that ability to be so open and honest, because I think transparency is good. Like, one, especially as an employee, like you don't want one day to come into work and they be like, by the way, your job doesn't exist anymore because we ran out of money. Like, nobody wants that. And it happens all the time, right, in the job market. So we want to get to the point, and it's happened to me twice. We want to get to the point, like, if we know that like our runway is really tight, that it's not a surprise. It's something that people know is happening today, and it's a real thing. And so that's exactly why we kind of built this open company, and it's all on the idea of open source is best and builds the best products. And we've kind of continue that idea of like an open company builds even better products than an open source company would, and we just kind of kept that up and continued it on. And everybody on our team loves the fact that they know everything that's going on, and our customers get the same kind of feedback and transparency if they want to go and look at the code, or they want to go and look at like analytical data around like how we're doing as a company. They can see all that data.
Wow. I love that model. Where did that kind of where did you develop that leadership style? Like where did that kind of come
Um,
from? Because that's we would say admittedly, I think that's a little unconventional based
yeah,
on the norms. Like that's not usually how it is. So where did that come from you?
I think a lot of it for me at least came through my time at Clerk. um, Colin and Braden, who are the co-founders of Clerk, they were pretty open and honest about literally everything that was going on in the company. We knew when they were raising funds. We knew when they were, it was a rough time, or we were trying to get something, to go better than it was before, or we were trying to get more customers. Like we knew everything that was going on at the company, and I kind of took a lot of that on as like, yeah, like when I was at Clerk, like Clerk was my own company. Like even though I didn't have real stakes in the company, like I had a small stake in the company and I wanted it to do great. um it was very much that ideation of like, man, it's really nice to have a CEO and a CTO and a co-founders that like cared enough to bring all this data to us and show it to us. And it gave you this like sense of one, security of like, oh, okay, we've got like X million in the bank, like I don't have to really be concerned as long as I'm a performer. And two, it gave me the idea of like, oh, okay, like this is what we're trying to do to get to the next level. Like how can I be part of that next level up? And I kind of brought that on. And then like some of the basically doing the opposite of other companies I'd worked at, where like being in the dark and then one day you come to work and suddenly we don't have the money to pay you anymore and sorry, here's the door. Taking a lot of that and being like, man, I don't ever want to do that. I want to be as open and honest as possible. And so I kind of took that on and just kind of kept it going, and all of my managerial experience over the years kind of helped play into that too.
Uh, Obviously, there's we see the benefits,
Mhm.
and this is still a relatively new company that transitioned from a startup. What are some of the challenges or the kind of growing pains that you guys have dealt with so far?
So many. So many. Andres and I, for the first, I want to say probably close to a year of the company, like didn't take days off. Like on Andres got married at one point and was like back to work like 3 days later. Um, like it was very much just like we're the grind is here and we're here for now. And like we took some time off the end of the year this year, but like for the most part, it's very much like, it's hard to build a company from start. And like when we start to hire people, some of that like you got to back off a little bit and like some of that weight came off your shoulders. But then new weight came on because you're like, oh God, now I've got an employee and now I have to care about their well-being on top of everything else. Um so that was a real challenge. And then the second thing was like we had really good growth in 2024. Like we went from, I think at the beginning of 2024 we'd done something like 15 million requests through our API, and by the end of the year we'd done 5 billion. So like
Wow.
we've done a lot, right? So like it was, some of it was trial by fire in the sense that like we knew that our product scaled really really well, but like then we actually saw it in action, and then there was like some days where it didn't go quite as well, and like you know you really have to scramble around. um and then hiring too, that was kind of a rough thing that we did in our first year. Like we hired some people that didn't work out, just like they didn't fit what we needed, and they felt the same way. And some of them were just like, this is too much being in like a really small stage startup. Well, I'm like employee 3 or 4, like it's crazy to be this person and try and figure out what I'm supposed to do here every day. um and so we did a lot of lessons learned from that, of like, okay, when we're hiring the next 2 or 3 people, like we really got to nail home that like, hey, we're tiny, and like you may wear 5 hats every day, and it's not going to just be like, hey, come in and here's 2 tickets and like you get to go home and that's the end. um but also on the top of that was like, hey, we want to make sure that everybody takes time off and they're feeling okay, and all those kind of things that like kind of go the wayside with startups. So like one of our biggest initiatives is we give you unlimited PTO, but you have to take 30 days in a year. So if you don't take 30 days in a year, you get a nice email from me in like November of like, hey, by the way, like you still have 2 weeks PTO, so you've got to take them all. So pick 2 weeks out in the next 6 weeks, and you have to take all your time off. And this is just something that I think is really, really important, is like making sure our team are refreshed and feel like they can take a vacation whenever they need to, and not have to think about like, oh God, I can only take 2 days because we got this thing to ship. It's like, no, like your mental well-being is way more important than what's happening here, and someone else can pick up that slack.
Obviously, the mental health thing is so important, but it also sort of is a testament to people's work ethic. And obviously, you like to see like they want to be there, they're committed to being there. So striking that balance is really really hard. What's the ideal candidate for a role at Unkey look like to you? Like, what are some of the qualities that you look for in someone? Because we have people that are looking for roles.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that you're hiring now, but again,
Right.
it's good to know.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, by the way, we are hiring. We just go to unkey.com/careers. There's 2 jobs there. Apply for them. But mostly it comes down to like really understanding the startup lifestyle, in the sense that every day is different and every day is going to be a new challenge. But know that if you ask questions, you're not going to be left alone and in the dark. Like, we very much spend, time with each of our employees multiple times a day, like, hey, like, yep, okay, this part's where you're struggling, and like, here's how we can fix this, and like, here's the code that may help you, and like, here's some resources, blah 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 blah. But it mostly comes down to like, you may not be an exact fit for the role, but it more comes around like your personality than it does around like having the full skills that we're looking for. Because we've hired people that have been like, oh, these people sound perfect, and then they get into the role and it's like, oh man, like they're really good at what they do, but also like they don't have the other pieces of the personality of like being willing to like switch and context switch a lot and do a bunch of different things. And a big thing for us is like being able to work asynchronously, because we're across the globe. So there's some of us that are in US, some of us are in Turkey, some of us are in Germany. So like we're spread out. So like there's times of the day where there may not be like the most senior person around, and you may have to wait till tomorrow to get an answer from somebody. And just being like cognizant of like, hey, it's 3 in the afternoon my time, it's 9:44 in Germany. Like, I shouldn't be messaging someone who's probably trying to get a good night's sleep or trying to enjoy their evening. And it's just around that, really. That's really played out really well for us. People that we hired may not have been like 10 out of 10 superstars that works at like Meta or Google or whoever. They've been like in different roles, but it's that mindset and that like ability to like be willing to do context switching, or maybe even work on a project they don't enjoy super much, but it's temporary. Like, the next project will be something more exciting that you probably want to work on, but we just got to get this done.
Gotta take the steps to get to that next one. How important, because we've talked about a lot about like learning to code as far as
Mhm.
like the coding software development side, but how important to you are the other things, the soft skills, the people skills, the un what the untangibles? Is that I can't think of what that word the word is I'm thinking of, but based on what you just said, as far as looking for a person to fill some of these roles, it's a lot more about how they are in an environment as opposed to what they're putting down on a keyboard. So how important is that?
Yeah, it's super important. I have a saying that soft skills pays bills, which is true. You could be
Mm,
the best coder in the world, but if you can't like convey what you're trying to do or talk to other people and like all the other soft skills that come around with that, and like being, a team player and all those things, like it just won't work out. Because the whole team, has their own specialties, and you all need to work together to kind of get to the end goal. Um, Whether that's like, Andreas with his really great ability to like build distributed systems, Like he knows that his limit is there somewhere, and he's going to need someone else to do the rest. And similarly with me, like I know that I'm really good at marketing to devs, and like that's what I did for a long time. So like that's what I'm really good at. But like if you need me to market to like enterprise customers, like I have no idea. I don't know what they want. So I'm gonna have to get, like at some point I'm gonna have to get somebody to kind of fill that role, and learn from them. But yeah, it's one of those things of like if you don't have those soft skills, like you, especially in startups, it just won't work out. It just isn't one of those things. And I've seen people come in and be like elite level coders and then leave 3 months later because they just don't fit in with the teams.
I think that they're so important. I like that you had kind of mentioned there that being self-aware of what your strengths, but also your weaknesses are, is almost as important. Um, Being able to figure out where people are the best fit in a team so that you're able to fill in the blanks with other people's strengths
Yep.
is such a great quality of a good leader. So knowing what your team is good at and then putting all those pieces together, kudos to you, man. That's a lot years of experience. I'm sure you've trialed and errored that a few times. We've got about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to obviously I want to talk a little bit more about Unky and where the idea of like taking that came from. Do going as just a side project to taking it full time. Like, what was the whole process there for you?
Yeah, so the original idea is I cannot take credit for the original idea. The original idea actually came from Andreas. So originally it started as a sort of, it was originally pitched as, hey, we should do co-marketing. Because obviously I worked at Clerk and he worked at Upstash. And he built a bunch of different open source projects and they all needed an API and they all needed like API keys. And it was like he just kept copying and pasting code everywhere, which is fine. Like when you're building these projects, like you just copy and paste, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he came to me and said, like, hey, it would be cool if we could do like maybe a template or like an open source repo that allowed people to build basically API keys and make them secure and scalable. And make it really nice and simple. We can integrate Clerk, we'll integrate Upstash, and it'll be this really cool thing. And this kind of, I want to say, like, unlock this core memory inside of me of all the frustration of building APIs. When I was like my first 10 years of like building all these really annoying APIs that talk to like states and lottery systems and gambling machines and all sorts of things that I did in my career. And I said, well, like, we should just do an open source project. Like, we should just build together. Like, this is the time. Like, we've known each other for like a year and a half now. Like, we've talked back and forth. Like, why don't we just build this and see what happens? And if it's a open source project that does well, great. We'll just continue building on the side, and we'll just stay with our day to day jobs. Um, and then so we built it. So in June of 2023, God, it feels like forever ago now. We spent like 2 solid weeks of basically working another 9 to 5 job after hours. So Andres would finish his role at Upstash. He would work for like 8 hours, and then I would finish my role at Clerk at like 4, and I'd work till like 11 or 12, and then I'd go to bed. And that's basically
Wow.
what we did all summer. Um, Fortunately, at that time, I had a pool in my backyard. So I just sat by the pool in the nice, warm North Carolina heat and just coded and just had a great time. And then we launched it, and it did numbers that we weren't really expecting. And it was kind of weird. So, like, we launched on Twitter, and that was all we did. And like, we did like 700 stars in like a week and had like 700 signups. And we were just like, what is happening? Like, we don't really understand. And then 2 weeks after that, a company reached out and said, like, hey, we want to use your product, but we can't use you unless we can pay you because, like, we don't know if this is going to be here in a year. And so Andreas and I kind of scrambled and we implemented Stripe and then put the payment system in place. And we actually, because of the amount of volume they were doing, they wanted to do millions of requests. We like built them a special contract because we didn't really know what we were doing. And like did that and put that in place. And during that time, a friend of ours, Glober, who works at Terso, his founder over there, said like, "Hey, I think you guys actually have like a really cool product. Like, you should talk to VCs because I think you have something that could be like fundable and like you could really build something amazing from this." And there's a hilarious Discord message somewhere that Andreas and I have, which is basically a message back and forth from us saying like, hey, how we love the jobs that we're currently in, and we have no interest in doing this full time. And then like
The irony.
and then 3 weeks after that, we had like funding essentially. And we met with our first VC, Tim, over at Essence, and he immediately got the idea. And he could see the future, and he could see the ideas and the like the ideation and like where we could go next. And so then once we had that kind of like buy-in from one person who wanted to give us a lot of money, what we thought was a lot of money at the time, and that was all we wanted to raise. So to give concept, he gave us $500,000, and that's all we wanted to raise because we were just going to do it on our own. That was it. It was just going to be me and him, just going to grind out for a year or so, and we'll see if we can get another round of funding. And so we did that, and then he was like, $500,000 is not enough. Let's do more. And so Tim introduced us a bunch of VCs. We ended up raising like $1.5 million. And then that was like really the start of the company. And so we got that funding at the end of 2023. And then we started hiring and doing all that kind of crazy stuff. And then everything's kind of completed into this big thing that we have today. And yeah, it was very much just like right time, right place, right idea. Thinking about like DX and like what people struggle with, like in the Vercel world, kind of going with that same concept of like, oh, it's really cool that you can just build something and deploy it and it takes 2 seconds. We had the same idea, which was like, hey, you can just have API keys in minutes and then like rate limiting. And now you have logs and analyticals and audit logs and RBAC and all the other stuff that we have now. And yeah, it was just like a crazy journey to get there. It was really just like 2 guys that wanted to build a cool open source project that then turned into like, hey, actually, this is like worth something. And like people want to give us money to like build it into a company. And we've just been like kind of riding that wave ever since. And you know, we're just about closed with our next round of funding. I can't disclose the figure, but it's a lot more than we raised the first time, and we're super excited that we like can now hire some more people and like continue the journey for another 3 or 4 years before we have to worry about trying to get more money and keeping the company going.
Oh wow. What a success story there. That's crazy. Can you kind of touch on where that transition was from the full-time roles to deciding like, okay, well maybe this is too much to be doing both at the same time.
Yeah, so it really came down to basically VCs were at a point where like we wouldn't invest in you unless you're all in. Like that's really the
That
rule.
makes sense.
It's really the
Sure.
rule. And like there's a few occasions where that may not be true, but for the most part, VCs want to see that you're fully in. And so once we raised that $500,000 and it was like there on the table, like we had to decide whether or not we wanted the money. So like we talked about it and we said like, hey, like could we really do this? Is this really feasible? Like what's your like home life like? Like if you took a pay cut, what would happen? And like those kind of discussions came up. And it was really hard. Like, don't get me wrong, like both of us were doing really, really well at our roles. And so it was like a hard decision to make. And it took like a few days back and forth, and then like conversations with, you know, family and friends and all that kind of stuff to like be like, you know, do you think this is really worth doing? And I'm, you know, in my mid 30s and Andreas is like in his late 20s. So it was like this weird concept of like, okay, like I'm taking more risk because I'm like in my mid 30s and like, you know, I have a lot more responsibility than he does. But like, okay, let's fine. Let's just give it a shot. Like the worst thing that happens is we build a company and it fails in the first 2 years. And then maybe we'll come up with a different idea during that time and we'll try and build a different company, or we'll go back and work for other companies. And we had that opportunity arise at one point where an undisclosed company offered us to essentially buy the company and then like roll us into their payroll. And that kind of fell apart and we kind of decided it wasn't the best idea. But yeah, like it was one of those weird scenarios where it was just like, oh, let's give it a shot. Worst thing that happens is we have to go and get new roles at somewhere else. And I've seen founders do that before. And so I was less concerned about that. And we just decided to go for it and see what happens.
Wow. I love that. That's like so inspiring. How you mentioned personal lives, how has this affected your work-life balance? Obviously, again, you're not just pulling the 8 hour shift or 12 hour if we're being even kind, because a lot of developers will, burn the midnight oil.
Hmm.
But you're in a totally different role now. It's a different ballgame, and you've got people
Hmm.
relying on you too. So where does your personal life balance with this workload at this point?
Um, it's a bit of a weird thing. So it's much better than it was. So in the begin, like the first from when we got the money, which was we got it in late October of 2023, until like I want to say like almost September of last year. It was just like nonstop. Like I didn't really switch off. Like I had my laptop, my phone with me 24/7. Um, Answering emails at like ungodly hours or whatever it was, right? I was sleeping like, I mean, I don't sleep very well anyway, but I was sleeping like 3 hours a night every night, and like I had no like sleep schedule. It was completely ruined, and like my personal life was pretty much just like Unkey is like everything. Um and now it is better. Like I try and stop after, like I try and get off my desk after like 10 to 11 hours, and like go and like move to a different room. I'll take my laptop with me. It doesn't mean I'm going to work, but I have it. And then I take my phone with me, and like I have contact through that. So like if someone's messaging me, I can just do it on my phone and kind of take it to that level. But I try and get out and do things like on the weekends and stuff. Like Andreas and I have a very good understanding, both of us, that like, hey, we just bring our laptops just in case like one of us doesn't have internet. But like there's no expectation that either of us are going to go and work like a full day on Saturday and Sunday, but we will do occasional work. So my work life balance is pretty good. It's better than it was. I make time for things like running and working out like during my days and stuff. Like I try and make sure that like my health comes first too in that scenario. And my girlfriend is very much like a very active person, so like we try and make sure that we get like away from our computers because she's in the same space. Like she's also a developer, so like making sure that we're away from like our computers on the weekends and getting out and doing things, less so in the cold months but more so in like the spring, summer, fall. Like we'll try and get out and do things. But yeah, it's much better than it was. It is a rough life in the beginning, but it's totally worth it. 100%. I wouldn't change anything.
That was going to be one of my next questions. Just looking looking back at your journey, like what are some, maybe not change, but I think what are you going to adapt to moving forward into 2025? New year, you've seen what 2024 did for you guys. Like what's coming down the pipe for you?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to find our feet. Just as like being in C suite versus like being ICs or being managers or whatever. So like we're still trying to figure out some things. But like a lot of it comes down to like we're now hiring to essentially buy time back from ourselves, right? Like we're hiring in very specific roles to like buy some time back for ourselves so that we can do other things. So that we don't have to do 20-hour days because it just doesn't, like we just don't have the manpower. We don't have whoever it is to kind of fill this gap. So there's a lot of that in there. And then just in general, like I want to just keep everything that we're kind of doing and sort of level up. Like we have a lot of projects coming in the pipeline that are super cool and I'm really excited about them. Um, but it's just about, making sure that all of our devs on the team and all of our customers are still happy and we're still there, and that Andreas and I get to buy some of our time back and get to spend some more time doing other things that maybe we put away and kind of ignore for a while and then come back to later. That's most of my 2025 goals, and especially for the company, is like just continue to see that growth. And I keep telling people, if we don't 10x what we did in 2024, I'll be really disappointed in our growth. And like we're totally on track to do those kinds of things. It just comes down to the grit and hard work that the team puts out every week.
I love it. I love it. We're coming down to the last minute or two here. I got two more quick questions. And
Yeah.
again, thanks, James, for spending some time with us today and giving us a breakdown of your journey to Unkey. Uh, Phenomenal product. Make sure everybody go and check that out. Unkey.com. There it is. And as he mentioned now twice, and I did put the link down there for everybody as well, he is hiring um, for a couple different roles. So go check those out if you're looking. What does success look like to you?
Hmm, great question. Um, so at least for me, like there's two types of success, right? There's personal success and then there's Unkey success.
Hmm.
I'll touch on Unkey success first, and we'll come back to personal stuff. But like Unkey success for me is just like unlocking API development for everyone. We're very much in this kind of mode of like we're trying to build Unkey in a way that you can almost look at it as the Vercel of APIs, where everything is so easy to do that you don't have to worry about all these complicated systems and how they all work together. You just build your API and boom, everything else kind of works and plays nicely, and that's what we're building to. So success to me is just like making it as easy as possible for anybody that wants to build APIs, whether they're brand new developers or they've been doing it for 20 years. We want to make that as easy as possible and as enjoyable as possible. And then like personal success, it just comes down to like really getting all of my personal goals kind of achieved and unlocked. Like this year, like I really want to like nail back to getting into sort of running half marathons again and spending my time, you know, doing things and traveling because I didn't take a vacation for 10 years. Like my first vacation was in November, and it was very short. It was like 3 days, and that was the first time I'd taken one in like
Wow.
10 years. um and so like getting to do a bit more of that and like just having more time for myself to do things that I've been putting off, like all the hobbies that I've had to put off over the last 2 years. Like I want to get some of those back, right? Like I want to be able to go and do more of those things and enjoy them. And those are
What's
really
one of those things? What's one of those things?
uh,
You said the hobbies. What are you
yeah,
taking back this year, James?
yeah. What am I taking back this year? I think reading is a big one. Like I put reading pretty much off. Like I read a couple of books that were very much around building startups and like being a CEO because I had no idea what I was doing. Um, but like actually reading for enjoyment is something that I've missed, and I've kind of started this year already, like reading a couple of books that I've had for a while that have just been laying around collecting dust, and I'm like, finally, I can read some of this at night. And then the other ones is just like fitness in general. Like if people know who I am, like last year at the end of 2023 into sort of like February March time, I was running like 60 to 70 miles a week. So I was like having a blast just running all the time, and I spent a lot of time like using that time for mental cycles because we were so early. It was like, oh god, what are we going to do now? Like we got like $1 million. Like what do we do with this money? Like what am I supposed to do now? Like how am I supposed to do it? So I spent a lot of time just like running really, really like it was almost every other day and a lot. 10 plus miles, anywhere up to 15 miles on the weekend. In the frigid cold. It didn't matter if it didn't matter how cold it was. I was just out there having a blast and using that for mental cycles. And sort of like the latter part of last year, I just kind of like it just fell off because I was just everything else was in the way. Like I was trying to raise a fund, and like that kind of took away a lot of that. And so getting back into that and like getting back to lifting in a garage gym and all those kinds of fun things, like are things I'm looking forward to doing this year.
I love that. Fellow runner here. What's your best half marathon time? I'm curious. You run a lot more than I do too,
Yeah,
at least
I don't run that much anymore, but
not anymore. Yeah.
let me look. I probably have the Strava. Let me look at my Strava. Strava will tell me.
There you go. Because one of my goals this year, last year, my personal fastest time, because I never did long distances, but I can't do a full marathon, but I can do, the 13. Um, two 2 hours, 4 minutes. I want to break 2 hours. That's like my goal.
So we're about the same. So mine's a 2 hour and 5 minute is probably my best.
Ah,
So we're around the same kind of speed.
nice, nice.
But yeah, if I could do a sub 2, that would be great this year.
Yeah.
I'd also like to do like a 27, 28 minute 5K. Because I'm very slow. If anyone knows me, I'm incredibly slow when I run because I just don't care. Like I've never really put the effort into be like, I need to be fast. I just like I like to run. And so like putting a few of those challenges in this year of like, hey, I'd like to do like a sub 28 minute 5K and potentially do the sub 2 hour half marathon would be amazing for me. But like my dad, who is now 61, I think. I hope he doesn't watch this because I've forgotten how old he is. Maybe he turned 61 this year. Like he run marathons, half marathons, like all that stuff, all the way up until sort of last year. Like he was putting in the work. And so like if I can beat any of his times, that's a good goal for me. Like a guy in his 50s and 60s, if I can beat that time, we're good. So yeah, and he is pretty quick. And so like anything that's under sub 2 would be great for me.
I love that. Well, we can be accountability buddies then, and let's make that our goal.
There you go.
I was just thinking in my head too, because conferences, people
Mm-hmm.
get together and they run. We
Yes,
we should totally plan to do that.
we should 100%.
That would
You should go to All Things Open in Raleigh this year.
I will probably be there. I know I will be at Render. Um, I don't know what else. We're working on the conference schedule as we
Yeah.
speak. So
Yeah, if you're going to be at All Things Open, we should 100% do that because we'll be there again this year. I
heck
didn't
yeah.
run this year because I was paranoid about setting up our first booth for the first time, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And so, but this year I'd love to run with some of the devs because I know they did a couple runs this year.
Oh yeah, every time it's fun. The one in Atlanta for Render was my first, and it was just cool. It was just a cool experience to be
Yeah.
around everybody with those shared interests,
Mhm.
Like that's community. So all right, well we hit the hour. This is fantastic. Thank you again, James. Do you have anything you have up and coming that you want to drop, plug, any events you're going to be at, anything you want to talk about real quick
Um,
before we wrap up?
Not a lot. If you follow me on YouTube and you've been wondering where I am, this year I'm coming back. So I already have a few videos recorded and queued up, so you can find me there. Otherwise, yeah, it's just all about Unkey. Like, go and check out Unkey, give feedback, join the community, chat to us, contribute, all those cool things. That's the biggest thing, and yeah, that and you can find me on Twitter, X, or whatever it's called this week. I'm always there. I'm always doing something on there. So if you want to do, that's usually where you can find me, and usually you can reach out to me through those channels.
Awesome. I love it. Well, James, thanks again. Thanks to everybody down in the chat. I see Nick. Congrats on the new job, by the way, buddy.
Oh yeah,
Chris Lane Jones, Roxy, Richard, everybody else that was, I saw Marino sneak in here too. Great to see Marino. Thanks again. We will see everybody Wednesday. I think I've got something. I'll have to check the calendar, but you can always check the TorqueCal website. Our calendar is there for all the great events that Torque will be doing. James, thank you again. And
yeah.
everybody, remember, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. It's also important to use Unkey for your API tools. All right. We'll see you guys. Have a great day.